If you thought DeWanna Bonner's return to Indiana was going to be a quiet, dignified moment for a seasoned WNBA vet, think again. What actually happened was closer to a public trial, with 20,000 screaming jurors. Her reappearance at Gamebridge Fieldhouse wasn't just about basketball. It was about reckoning. The moment Bonner stepped onto the court in a Phoenix jersey, the crowd didn't just boo. They erupted. And this wasn't your run-of-the-mill booing the opponent situation. This was personal, deep, like a betrayal that hadn't been forgiven or forgotten. Because when Bonner left the Fever just 9 games into the season, it wasn't a normal trade. It was a walkout, a checkout, a quiet retreat wrapped in a thin veil of professionalism. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. No video farewell, no heartfelt goodbye to the fans, not even a cryptic caption on Instagram. Just gone. And fans? They don't forget abandonment. They don't cheer for someone who bailed the moment things stopped being about them. See, when Bonner first signed with the Fever, it felt like a big win. She brought experience, name recognition, and leadership to a young, hungry squad. It looked like the kind of move that would help shape a playoff-caliber culture, especially with Caitlin Clark entering the league. There was a vibe, veteran plus phenom equals unstoppable potential. But behind the scenes, the reality wasn't so rosy. Sources close to the team had whispered about growing tension, about Bonner's discomfort with not being the focal point anymore. Because as soon as Clark touched the floor, the energy shifted, the offense shifted, the spotlight shifted. And it's no secret, not every veteran likes handing over the keys. Instead of adapting to a new system or helping elevate the team's rising stars, Bonner wanted out, and fast. Her request to be traded to Phoenix wasn't about strategy. It was about control. She didn't want to be a puzzle piece. She wanted to be the picture. So when she returned to Indiana, now in enemy colors, Fever fans showed up with receipts. The boos started during warm-ups and only intensified as the game wore on. Every time she touched the ball, booed. Every missed shot, cheered like a buzzer beater. And the defining moment, when Bonner had 2 shots blocked in one possession, was met with full-blown mock celebration. It was like the fans were finally getting closure. And you know who made sure they did? Caitlin Clark. Even while sidelined with an injury, Clark wasn't just watching the game. She was conducting it. Every time the crowd dipped in energy, she stood up, waved her towel, clapped, motioned, yelled. She played the crowd like a seasoned entertainer. And the fans? They responded like loyal soldiers rallying behind their general. Clark might have been out of uniform, but she was absolutely in command. It's not hard to see the subtext. Bonner left a team that Clark is now leading. And it's not just Clark's stats. It's her influence. Her presence makes people care. Her leadership builds momentum. And when someone steps away from that kind of culture because they're no longer the star, the contrast is stark. The Fever, without Clark on the floor, still played their best game of the season. Aaliyah Boston took control in the paint. The supporting cast delivered on both ends, and Indiana racked up 107 points. That's not just winning. That's statement basketball. Meanwhile, Bonner? She looked like a ghost. For points, 1 of 4 shooting. Slow, disconnected, overwhelmed. At one point, she visibly winced at the crowd noise after yet another missed shot. It didn't look like a veteran returning home. It looked like someone walking into their own bad decision in surround sound. But of course, not everyone agreed with how the night went down. Phoenix's Kalia Copper came to Bonner's defense, calling the booing disrespectful. She reminded fans that Bonner is a WNBA legend, multiple championships, all-star appearances, a career most players only dream of. And you know what? She's not wrong. DeWanna Bonner has had a Hall of Fame-level career. But here's where the line gets drawn. Legacy doesn't exempt you from accountability. Being a legend doesn't mean you get to leave a team mid-season without consequences. It doesn't mean fans owe you forgiveness you never earned. Especially not when your exit looked more like self-preservation than leadership. This is professional sports. And in pro sports, loyalty cuts both ways. Fans don't owe players blind devotion. especially not when those players treat the team like a temporary stop on the way to something better. And if we're being really honest, Bonner's time with the Fever felt transactional from day one. The leadership was never there. The chemistry never clicked. And when Clark started becoming the heartbeat of the team, Bonner didn't rise with it. She tapped out. That's what fans booed. Not her resume. Not her age. Not her talent. They booed the choice. The moment she decided she'd rather leave than adapt. And the Fever? They got better without her. They're young. They're scrappy. They're learning how to win. And that's happening because the right people stayed. The ones who saw Clark's arrival not as a threat, but as a turning point. The ones willing to grow together instead of pulling rank. So as Bonner walked off that court, visibly shaken, with the boos still echoing behind her, it wasn't just about a bad game. It was a full-circle moment. A return not just to Indiana, but to the truth. You left us. We moved on. We got better. You didn't. And honestly, that might have been the biggest loss of her career. Because for all her accolades, all her past wins, nothing feels worse than realizing you bet against the right team. And lost. You knew at the moment she walked into the arena. That chill in the air? That wasn't nerves. That was Indiana remembering. DeWanna Bonner had returned to Gainbridge Fieldhouse, but not as a respected veteran. Not as a locker room leader she was once framed to be. No, tonight, she was a villain, and the fans were ready. Let's not sugarcoat it. This wasn't some warm welcome home tour. This wasn't a classy hand clap for a former player coming back in new colors. From the second Bonner stepped on that hardwood, she was hit with a wave of boos that rattled the building. You could feel it in your chest. This was personal, because the city of Indianapolis remembers everything. They remember how she came in, hyped as a cornerstone, a respected vet who was supposed to guide this young, hungry Fever squad into the next chapter. They remember the 9 games. Just 9. And then, gone. Not a public statement. No players' letter to the fans. No thank you to the teammates who expected her to lead. She vanished from the locker room, demanded a trade, and got it. Phoenix swooped in and gave her a new jersey. A clean slate. But Gainbridge? They weren't erasing anything. That noise, that booing, that was accountability. That was a full house of fans saying, you don't get to leave us and expect silence in return. And the basketball gods? Oh, they were petty that night. Bonner, who had every reason to want to prove a point, played like she didn't even want to be there. 1 of 4 shooting. Just 4 points. 2 blocked shots in 1 possession. That's not just bad luck. That's karma on a fast break. The crowd loved every second. Every miss? Cheered like a game-winning 3. Every turnover? Celebrated like a trophy. Every time Bonner flinched at the noise, it was like the crowd grew stronger. And then there was Caitlin Clark, in street clothes, sidelined due to injury, but still the heartbeat of this Indiana team. She wasn't sitting quietly. She was engaged, clapping, yelling, motioning for more noise from the fans. Every time Bonner touched the ball, Caitlin stood and stared. Not angry, not smug, just present. It was quiet dominance from the bench. A reminder that this is her team now. That even when she's not scoring 30 or making highlight reels, she leads. Because what Bonner underestimated wasn't Caitlin Clark's game. It was her grip, her ability to unify, to command energy, to rally both teammates and fans. Bonner walked away from all of that, and she expected to come back and be respected? That's not how this works. Because let's be honest, Bonner didn't leave because she was unhappy with her minutes. She didn't leave because of a bad system or a toxic culture. She left because she wasn't the centerpiece anymore. And that's the part that stings. The truth is, the second Caitlin Clark arrived in Indiana, the dynamic changed. This was no longer a let the vet run the show kind of roster. This was a reset. And while some players embraced a new direction, Aaliyah Boston, Nalissa Smith, Erica Wheeler, Bonner opted out. And that's her right. But it's also the fans' right to respond. Kalia Copper might have called it disrespectful. She might have seen the boos as an affront to Bonner's decorated career. And sure, in a vacuum, you could make that case. But here, this was bigger than stats. This was about values. This was about loyalty. Indiana isn't some flashy market with celebrities courtside every night. They're not chasing TikTok fame or trending hashtags. They're loyal. They invest. They show up. And when you quit on that, when you turn your back and then show up months later like nothing happened, they'll let you know, this crowd, they weren't emotional. They were purposeful. The energy wasn't chaos. It was clarity. And the fever? Oh, they delivered. Even without Caitlin, they played their best ball of the season. Aaliyah Boston was an absolute force, scoring, rebounding, leading the charge like a true franchise player. And the bench? Lights out. They played like a team that had something to prove. Because they did. This wasn't just a win. It was a statement. Final score? 107-101, Indiana. And that box score will live longer in the minds of Fever fans than any stat Bonner ever posted in her short, forgettable time with the team. But the real moment? It came at the final buzzer. As the crowd roared, as the Fever players hugged each other at center court, as Caitlin stood up and high-fived her teammates, Bonner walked slowly toward the tunnel. Not injured, not angry, just defeated. And for once, the boos softened. Not because the fans forgave her, but because the story was over. The arc had closed. Bonner came back to Indiana expecting indifference, or maybe grace. What she got instead was consequences. And look, no one is saying DeWanna Bonner isn't a legend. She's accomplished, decorated, a multiple-time champion who has earned her place in WNBA history. But being a legend doesn't mean you get a pass. It doesn't mean you get to leave a team hanging and return like you're still the hero. That's not accountability. That's entitlement. And this generation of fans, they're done clapping for that. In today's WNBA, loyalty matters. So does leadership. And leadership isn't about being the loudest voice or the biggest name. It's about showing up when things are tough. About adjusting when the spotlight moves. About staying. Bonner didn't stay. So yeah, the boos were earned. The disappointment was justified. And the victory? Sweet, because this Fever team, they're on to something. They're building from the ground up with players who believe in each other, even when the stats aren't flashy. And when Caitlin Clark returns, when she's healthy, back on the floor and leading with her game, good luck trying to stop them. This wasn't just a win on the scoreboard. It was a cultural reset. Out with ego, in with grit. Out with entitlement, in with commitment. And for the fans in Gainbridge Fieldhouse that night, they didn't just witness a game. They witnessed justice. So here's the question. Where does DeWanna Bonner go from here? She can't erase the past. She can't undo how she left. But maybe, just maybe, this night gives her something more important than cheers. A chance to reflect. Because legacy isn't built on how many banners you hang or how many points you score. It's built on how you leave people feeling. And right now, Indiana remembers. They remember the exit. They remember the silence. And now, they remember the boos. You leave a team, you think it's over. That once you're out the door, the drama evaporates. But in sports, especially in women's basketball, where team chemistry runs deeper than just XS and OS, the ghost of how you left follows you. And for DeWanna Bonner, that ghost, it showed up in full force at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Because here's the thing about quitting. People don't just forget. Not teammates, not coaches, and definitely not fans. And while the game is technically 40 minutes, the real action started before the tip. During warm-ups, Bonner walked out like she didn't hear the rumbling crowd. But you could see it in her eyes. The reception was hostile, cold, unwelcoming. Not because people hate her, but because they feel let down. That's what made it sting. The fans expected more. And the way she left? Quietly, without closure. It left a hole. And the moment she checked in, you felt the arena pulse. The boos weren't surface-level heckling. They were loaded. They were disappointment turned into volume, betrayal and surround sound. The energy was relentless. Every touch, every pass, every missed shot from Bonner was treated like a mini-victory by the crowd. And you know what? She wasn't ready. She tried to play it cool. She waved off the noise, tried to stay locked in. But it got to her. You could see it. Her hands? Shaky. Her body language? Off. Her movements? Slow. And when she got blocked not once but twice in a single possession, it felt symbolic, like the universe had written the perfect metaphor in real time. This is what happens when you give up on something too soon. Now, contrast that with the other side of the court. The Indiana Fever were buzzing. Every player was moving with purpose. They weren't playing like a team missing its star. They were playing like a team that finally knew exactly who they were. And in the middle of it all, Caitlin Clark. Sideline, yes, but silent? Never. She wasn't just clapping from the bench. She was orchestrating the mood. Her energy fueled the crowd. Every time she stood up, the volume doubled. She celebrated every block shot, every basket, every rebound like it was a finals, and the crowd fed off it. It was almost eerie how easily she controlled the vibe without even touching the ball. That's the kind of power Bonner didn't anticipate. Because when she left, maybe she thought the team would unravel. Maybe she figured the rookie-led rebuild wouldn't hold up under pressure, that without her veteran presence, things would fall apart. But they didn't. They got better. And you know that had to sting. To look across the court at a team you walked away from and see them not only surviving, but thriving. To hear the fans scream for someone else. To see a group of players rally around a culture you couldn't wait to leave. It's a different kind of pain, not the physical kind. The kind that hits your ego. Because Bonner had her reasons. She wanted to be in a system that prioritized her, that gave her the ball more, that saw her not as a cog in the machine, but as the machine itself. And when Caitlin Clark entered the league, everything changed. The ball didn't stop at Bonner's hands anymore. The attention? Diverted. The plays? Rewritten. She was no longer the face. She was a feature. And some players can handle that. Others can't. Bonner? She couldn't. So she dipped. And when she came back expecting at least a sliver of respect from the fans, what she got instead was closure. Not the kind you ask for. The kind that's given. And let's talk about that locker room. Because while fans are loud, teammates speak volumes without saying a word. After the win, no one even mentioned Bonner's name in the post-game interviews. It wasn't shade, it was silence. That quiet, deliberate omission that says, "We've moved on." Aaliyah Boston, locked in, focused, gracious in victory. Her performance said everything. She's not just playing well. She's leading. She's taken the torch, and she's sprinting with it. Erica Wheeler, all smiles, celebrating the win, talking about how this team is starting to believe in itself. And Caitlin, grinning, towel slung over her shoulder, hugging every teammate like a proud coach. Not one of them brought up Bonner, because in that moment, she didn't matter. Not anymore. That's what made the win so brutal. For her, it wasn't just that she played poorly. It was that no one missed her. And that's the worst kind of rejection. When you leave thinking you're irreplaceable, only to return and realize they replace you without blinking. This wasn't a revenge game. This was a reveal. A look at what happens when a team grows past its ghosts. And Bonner? She had to watch it all from the wrong side of the court. But this story isn't just about one game. It's about what's happening in the WNBA right now. About this generational shift, where veteran players are being challenged by incoming stars not just in talent, but in influence. Players like Caitlin Clark aren't just athletes. They're disruptors. They bring new fans, new media attention, new expectations. And not everyone adjusts well to that. For some vets, it's threatening. For others, it's inspiring. But the ones who adapt, who mentor, who evolve, who lead even when the spotlight shifts, those are the ones who stay relevant, who stay respected. Bonner had the chance to be one of them. She had the chance to help build something new in Indiana. Instead, she chose control over culture. And when you choose ego over evolution, the game moves on without you. That's the lesson here, not just for Bonner, but for every player watching this unfold. You can't lead with your resume. Not anymore. You've got to lead with your presence, with your willingness to show up, to adapt, to put team above title. And if you don't, well, the boos speak for themselves. So what happens now? Bonner will keep playing. She'll bounce back, put up numbers, maybe even have a few statement games. But the damage is done. The trust? Broken. And in a league as tight-knit and emotionally invested as the WNBA, that matters. Meanwhile, Indiana is on the rise. With Caitlin Clark returning soon, Aaliyah Boston finding her rhythm, and the team's chemistry clicking into place, they're becoming more than just a feel-good story. They're becoming dangerous. And they did it without compromise, without coddling egos, without pandering to past glory. They did it by moving forward. So to the Fever fans who booed that night, you weren't being cruel. You were being honest. You saw someone walk away from your team, and you didn't pretend it was okay. You held them accountable. And to the Fever players who stepped up, you proved something bigger than stats or headlines. You proved that the team doesn't need saving. It just needed time. So here's the final word. DeWanna Bonner will go down in history as one of the league's greats. That's not up for debate. But in Indiana, her chapter is closed. And for a team that's building its future with intention, that's exactly how it should be. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment. Should Bonner be forgiven for leaving the Fever mid-season? Or did the fans have every right to boo her return? And how do you see the Fever evolving once Caitlin Clark comes back?